All right. Welcome, everyone. As folks are joining us here, we will give it just a minute or so before getting started to get everybody a chance to get in. But thank you so much for joining us. We'll get started in just under a minute. All right, welcome, everyone. Just going to give it another few seconds here before we get started. All right. Think we can go ahead and get started today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here for our coffee session on April 14th, 2026. Like usual, our coffee session is sponsored by the California Department of Education, or CDE. My name is Tyler Shakwa. I work for the training and outreach team here at ETS, and myself and my colleagues here at ETS, as well as at CDE, as well as some special guests today, will guide us through the session with a few prepared topics. And you can also ask questions through the Q&A feature in Zoom. The chat, like usual, is turned off for participants to post in, but we will be using the chat to share some links and things with you all. And we will do our best to get to all of your questions as they come up. So if you would like to download today's materials, including the slides, as well as a resource guide that has a bunch of links for you all, there is a link to our link tree in the chat, and you can also type in linktr.ee/Cal Outreach. There's a few links on there, and one of them will take you to our upcoming and on-demand trainings page, or you can just go straight there if you know how to go there. You can go to our coffee session under the current month of April and find the resource guide and PowerPoint to download there. All right, we're going to jump right into our kind of packed agenda today. So we'll go over, like usual, our training opportunities, some educator involvement opportunities, and some new and updated resources. And then we're going to hand it over to some folks to talk to you all about the accountability grace period change. So a bit of a special topic today from the Analysis, Measurement, and Accountability Reporting Division of the CDE. So we'll spend a little bit of time on that. And then we'll talk briefly, as time allows, about some student score reports and video SSRs and preparing for those. Talk about some test security topics, and then kind of our usual topics of stairs tips, call drivers, and reminders, and then of course any other questions that aren't answered by then. So let's jump right into our training opportunities. All right, first of all, we want to make sure to mention the California Assessment Conference, or the CAC. The 2026 CAC is happening on October 27th through the 29th in Riverside, California. And we are letting folks know now that there will be a submission window for proposals that opens on April 21st. So right around the corner, we'll be accepting submissions for folks who would like to present at the California Assessment Conference. So please keep an eye out for that. You should get an email or a few, but keep an eye out for that. I believe there's also the CAC website is the same URL as it always is. And you can keep an eye on that website as well when it gets updated. All right. A few upcoming trainings. So on April 16th, there will be another new coordinator training webinar, number 11, that will be focused on gathering feedback and preparing for scores. On April 20th, There will be an initial LPAC AST. So the module for the administration and scoring training, or AST, will be opening on April 20th on Moodle. And then on May 5th, there will be an initial LPAC AST overview and Q&A webinar to kind of go along with the opening of the Moodle training. You can join that webinar and ask questions and get sort of an overview of anything that has changed. And then, of course, next month on May 12th will be our next coffee session. And then a couple others in May as well to note. On May 13th, there will be the accessing summative assessment results in CERS Module 1. CERS is the California Educator Reporting System. So these are always a popular training series. And then the second module of that training will be on May 20th. So two different sessions for that accessing summative assessment results in CERS training. All right, a few opportunities to become involved in test development and other related trainings or opportunities. So if folks are interested, or you know other educators that might be interested in getting a little bit more involved on test design and accessibility and implementation, these are great things to pay attention to. So you can find all of this info on our Get Involved page on our website, or you can use this QR code. And some new opportunities for 26-27 will be posted on May 14th on that Educator Opportunities portal, or the CAASPP, or the California Science Test, the California Alternate Assessments, or CAAs, the Spanish Assessment, or CSA, as well as the summative LPAC and the summative alternate LPAC. Also, there are efforts for recruiting for Smarter Balanced, the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. So they invite educators to participate in the English Language Arts and Literacy, or ELA, and Math data review meetings for those Smarter Balanced summative assessments. And you can register now for the events hosted by Smarter Balanced on June 1st through the 2nd for math, and June 2nd to the 4th for ELA. All right, and just a couple of new or updated resources that we are able to offer. So there was a webinar in March that covered Atlas, which is the Authentic Tasks for Learning and Assessment in Science item bank. That webinar was recorded, and it's now available on our website and our YouTube channel. If you'd like to, if you missed that and want to go back and watch that recording, and as well, our March coffee session is available to view as well.
And any of these links are available in the resource guide that you can grab from our training page as well.
Yes. Awesome. All right. I think that is all of our intro topics. So now we're going to get into the meat of the session and cover the accountability grace period change. So for that, I am going to hand it over to some folks from the Analysis, Measurement, and Accountability Reporting Division at CDE. So I'll turn it over to Kim Muntank. Hey, Kim.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Kimberly Muntank, Administrator of the Accountability Development and Policy Analysis Unit here at the California Department of Education. I'm joined by my lovely colleague, Dr. Michael Ishiboto, who will be here in support to help answer any of your questions with regards to what we're about to present today. So next slide. All right. So just to familiarize everyone with what we're talking about, you're going to see the lovely accountability dial both here on this screen in the background as well as in our pictures that you can tell. So that everything that we're talking about right now is only applicable to the California School Dashboard. This doesn't affect anything else in the testing realm. This is fully only dealing with the English language arts, mathematics, and science indicators on the California School Dashboard. And it is implemented and effective as of 2026. So please, that's this year, in case anybody's wondering. So please pay attention. This is all applicable to this year's dashboard. So we have had for our past dashboards, 7 to be exact, a policy in place with regards to the academic indicators known as grace periods. And these were developed because of students who were transferring in and out of a school or district's determined accountability testing window. Now, if you remember back in the day, because you are, as I consider myself as well, old in our testing world. And you remember how long our accountability testing windows were back in 2017 and 2018. They were very, very long and very, very large. And testing took a long time because we did have a longer form specifically for our English language arts and mathematics tests. So those durations took a lot of time and students had a lot of movement in and out of those windows. Our grace periods only affected and impacted students who transferred in within or out within the start and end dates. And they were intended to hold schools and districts harmless when there was inadequate time to administer the assessment, either at the very beginning of the testing window or at the very end. And those grace periods removed students from both the numerator and the denominator of the participation rate requirements for the state of California. Next slide. Oh, there you go. So those original testing grace period determinations were as follows. If you had a window that was only 1 to 14 days in length, there were no grace periods applied to your window. If that window was 15 to 30 days, you received 1 grace period at the very end of your testing administration. But if your window was set up originally with CDE to be 31 days or longer, then you had 2 grace periods, and those were applied both at the beginning of the window and at the end. And on the next slide, you can see a lovely graphic. And if you've ever seen this graphic and tried to understand it, you'll be very relieved very shortly that you don't need to know or understand this ever again. So previously, we had a very large testing window as displayed at the very top, right? Testing window selected by the LEA. This could be as early as when you hit your threshold, and it could go to the very last day of the school. However, at CDE, we initiate and start your testing window and accountability as the first day a student logs in to test either in ELA, math, or in science. So that's when we actually start your window up. And then we had these grace periods. So at the very beginning, we'd apply a grace period. And so that meant any students that left your school at the very beginning of the window, we wouldn't count them against you. Then you had a regular testing window where anybody who was enrolled at any point of the time, they were accountable for testing. And then we had an ending grace period where any students who had enrolled in your school at the very end of the testing period did not need to be assessed. Now, that is over. This graphic is disappearing. It shall live in the archives of our technical guides. However, moving forward, we do not have this because at the March 2026 meeting of the California State Board of Education, they adopted and approved the removal of these grace periods from the participation rate calculation for all 3 of our academic indicators on the dashboard. So that's academic English language arts, or ELA, academic mathematics, and our science indicators. And now this is our very simple graphic and understanding who needs to be assessed during your assessment window and who will be counted within your participation rate. It is very simple. From 2026 on, your window is selected by you for whatever period or duration that is. That is still not on our end. I love the clapping. This is the good part, right? It still begins upon the first date of a student testing. That is not changing, right? So you can still initiate it for the earliest date possible, but wait until someone actually logs in, right? That's when it will actually start. So, and have no fear. No one, you're not giving anyone access to the test, right? Until, everyone is ready to go through. So, you can say your window starts, say, on, March 13th, and no one logs in until April 15th. That's fine. We'll see April 15th as the first date of your testing window. From that date forward until the end of your accountability window that you've set up, that is who we will be, holding accountable for your testing window. So, and that is what's going to move forward. That's it. So when we have tons and tons of questions that come in and say, who do we test? Do I need to test them? Are they at your school? Have you started testing? Is your window open? If all of those three things are yes, then test the student. That's it. It's a really simple and easy now. There's no, secret science to any of this. Once you've begun testing, and as long as your window is open, you have the ability to test everyone, and you should be testing everyone because we will be holding you accountable to test everyone. Next slide. So just to make this really certain and clear, what's the same? So LEs will still determine their testing window based on your local context. We're not in charge of that. That's still on you. It still begins when the first student logs into the school. Any student who leaves before the window starts, aka before that first student logs in, not included in the participation rate window. So you don't need to write in a giant explanation to us. There's no worries. Those students, right, you have not begun testing. Even though ETS has let you into the system, right? You could if you wanted to, but you haven't started yet. You're all good to go. Any student that enrolls after the window is closed is not included in your participation rate either. So if you close your window 2 weeks before the end of school and a student enrolls in your school the last week of school, there's no window to enroll in, right? There's no opportunity for them to test. They're not required to test, and we won't hold you accountable for that. And additionally, the same thing still applies. LEs in schools still need to test 95% of their students in our accountability world. So that means at the district, at the school, and within every student group that the accountability measures within the dashboard, we will be looking to see that 95% of those students have been assessed. Now, what's different? Just a couple things. Now, any student that's enrolled during the accountability testing window is expected to test, right? So these weird windows at the beginning and end do not exist anymore. That's what's different. I think it's great. There's not multiple colors and dotted lines and all kinds of 508 problems with a giant graphic. We don't need to worry about that anymore. If they're at your school, again, and your window's open, test the students. This will, however, have the intended requirement that some schools will have an increase in the number of students that you're expected to test. That's because we're not kicking out some students. So your participation rate may be reduced if you are not testing these students, if you continue old practices and do not update your practices to reflect these new rules. So last up, we just have these 2 frequently asked questions. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask us today in the Q&A feature, maybe we'll add some more. The biggest one we'll always get is, are you going to recalculate the prior year information so that essentially you're comparing apples to apples? And the answer is yes. So we will be recalculating the 2025 dashboard results for 2024 to use as status in the 2026 dashboard. This isn't a bad thing. If your rate goes down and your distance from standard perhaps went down, you'll see a bigger bump this year if you have things go up. So there's no worries. This is a hold harmless issue, so you should be good. And then will grace periods still apply for the science indicator? So grace periods, again, were removed from ELA, math, as well as science within the decision made by the state board in March. And that's all we have from you. Michael, are there any questions out there that you think we should answer and address?
Yeah, so there's a couple questions about the 95% participation rate minimum. So this does not impact that. So you still have to test 95%, at least 95% of your students. If you do not, then you will receive a low scale score for each student needed to bring your participation rate up to 95%. And there was another question about if a student disenrolls during your accountability testing window, will they count against your participation rate? It will depend. If the student disenrolls, doesn't enroll at another school within California, then they will um, count against your participation rate. If they transfer into a different school that is within their accountability window or before their accountability window, then that other school would be responsible for testing that student. There are a lot of other different scenarios that could happen with transferring students within and out of accountability windows. So when we post the academic technical guide, you'll be able to see all those scenarios.
I did see one question, and I think this will help frame a little bit of the understanding of the decisions that the state board made with regards to if there were grace periods around our ELPAC testing, right? So our initial or our summative ELPAC. And I can tell you that there have never been grace periods around that summative ELPAC testing. And it's really harsh. The participation rate requirement remains 95%. However, it is any student that is enrolled at any point in time right between February 1st and May 31st. There is no discretion at your LEA to set that window to be smaller. There is no when a first student takes the test. The LPAC requirements and assumptions that you to assess 100% of all of your students at a threshold of 95% with that little wiggle room has been there since the beginning. And I can tell you that folks, when you said, well, this has no windows and no grace periods, yet academic has all of this working around. The board didn't seem to think that was really fair either in looking at three things. And so that's really why they saw an equity between these two expectations and requirements. So they wanted to make sure that this came into parity, and that was part of their decision. Additionally, if you are worried and are thinking, oh no, this is horrible, you are welcome to look at the March State Board of Education item, where we provide evidence that we do not see this impacting or creating any large impact across the state. In fact, it significantly changed no one's colors in any way, shape, or form and impacted and affected fewer than 2,000 students across the entire state of California. This was not anything that was making or breaking anyone's colors. It felt like it was. It feels like it was going to do something, but in actuality, it was not impacting or affecting folks in that same way, because participation rates, you guys knock it out of the park every single year. You test everyone. So your rates are so high already that that little, break over the middle, like you're not getting around that 95%. So congratulations to you. You're the ones that have blown these rates out of the water. And you're hitting 98, 99, 100% in our recognition within these rules already. So this is where we know that this isn't going to really impact or affect accountability in any significant way. So as I said, I know it feels like it. So I'm happy to, walk through all of that with you and answer any other questions. Michael, anything else to go through?
Yep. So there is a question, if a student has not enrolled in the district for at least 31 days and they still participate in CAASPP, does that count against our 95% participation rate? So that student would still be counted in your participation rate. However, for your distance from standard, which is calculated on this dashboard, you have to be continuously enrolled. So if a student transfers into your school during your accountability testing window, that student will be you would be held accountable for testing that student. However, that student would not be included in your distance from standard calculation. In order to be included in your distance from standard calculation, that student needs to be continuously enrolled. So enrolled from census day up into the date that they tested without a gap of more than 30 days, I believe. So two different calculations for two different parts of the dashboard, academic indicator.
So there's other questions around students enrolling for a day or two and not being tested. So those students you've always been held accountable for. You may not have thought about it, but you've always been accountable for testing them. They are part of your school. They showed up in your test to be tested results. If they withdraw from your school and enroll in another school where an assessment window is open and they're able to test, then that testing requirement moves to that other school or other district. However, if they enroll in your school and then withdraw, they've always been a part of your participation rate, and these rules do not change that with anything here. And yes, Wendy, did you do an analysis to see the percentage of district participation rates that would drop using this calculation? Yes, we did. They are available in that state board item. So you can walk through, and we presented all of that information again in the state board slides as well. So you can see that full presentation on YouTube if you'd like to, or you can look at our item to see what the evidence is there.
And I placed a link to the item or the agenda in the chat.
Well, thank you, Kimberly and Michael, for walking us through that. And yeah, we've got that link in the chat. And we'll just give a reminder that if you want to see the slides again, you can download those from our website that we mentioned, along with the resource guide that has some links and stuff like that. And maybe we'll give you all a chance to take a look at the Q&A if there's any other information you want to provide in there. Kimberly and Michael will hang out with us maybe while we go through to our other topics, and we can revisit if there are similar questions. But please look through. You should be able to see all the other questions that folks have asked in the Zoom Q&A. So we try not to duplicate questions too much, but you all answered a lot out loud for us as well. So thank you so much for going through that. Anything else you want to cover now before?
No, I did see some folks talking about alternative schools. Again,
Yeah.
our analysis does include our DAS schools. So, and again, I completely understand it feels like something is changing or colors may have changed due to your participation rate. We're not seeing that impact happen where you might have a change, your participation rate might dip or drop, but again, you can see all of the direct impacts that happen. There are very, very few districts and schools that had any impacts of you can go through and look at them and walk through the full results. We didn't want to present them here, walking after we've done all of those presentations to the state board as well as the California Practitioners Advisory Group. That's all available to see, to walk through. But yes, and if anyone has any questions, you are always welcome to reach out to dashboard@cde.ca.gov.
I'm going to put that email in the chat for folks as well.
Tyler, before we move on, can I make one point of emphasis? And
Of course.
thank you so much, all 275 of you that are here. I want to encourage you to do one thing, especially right around now. If you haven't yet taken a look at the Q&A, the answered section, wonderful, wonderful resource right now of things that might be circulating in your mind. And I really want to draw your attention to a small nuance that so often can be overlooked with regards to this topic. And it was asked by Amy, and it was masterfully answered by one of our colleagues. And it has to do, especially new LEA coordinators, that you might not have come across this important little nuance. Is there a minimum number of days that your window must be? Okay, until you've come across that, boy, is that a hidden small nuance that I really want to make sure everyone sees. Aside from that one, there are some wonderful, wonderful pieces of information. So throughout the rest of that time that we're together, look at the Q&A, the answered section for some wonderful questions and answers that might not have come to you, but as you look through them, they could be incredibly valuable. Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks, Moses. Thanks all. All right, we'll get through a few of our other topics here. But please, if you still have questions after looking through the answered ones, you can enter those into the Zoom Q&A and we'll try to get to those. Just a quick topic on SSRs and video SSRs. So we are getting close to where you're going to have to be sending out results. So we want to just remind folks to prepare the technology to receive and distribute SSRs electronically. So that means that the technology requirements should be tested for disseminating SSRs through your local SIS or student information system, which is usually that connected to your parent portal or whatever secure local method you have for delivering SSRs. And you'll also need to make sure that the credentialing through TOMS is set up so that TOMS can export those SSRs to your SIS vendor. And then, of course, there's some still deal with paper distribution, and so making sure that if that is something that you do, that you are able to download SSRs from TOMS and print and make them available locally. So also just a reminder to prepare to distribute those SSRs by the distribution deadline. So once LEAs have received all score reports, you are to distribute to parents or guardians within 20 working days for CAASPP and 30 calendar days for ELPAC. And so that's, we let you know when those get finalized, right? Like there's usually that first release where you get a bunch and then the rest come in and at some point we will let folks know when all of them have been distributed, and that's when those timelines kick in. And then a reminder about video SSRs, which are an optional personalized SSR experience available for the 25-26 CAASPP Smarter Balance Summative Assessments and the Summative ELPAC. So video SSRs can be purchased and are available within a few days after the regular SSRs are produced. They will have links provided to the participating SIS vendors and appear in student and parent portals next to the PDF version of the SSR. And they can also be created in the student's primary language for supported languages and customized by each LEA. So they have links that go to resources that you can determine and all kinds of stuff like that. So if you are interested in purchasing video SSRs for certain students for certain tests, or for everyone, you can do that now. There are links on our website and in your resource guide to find out a little bit more about video SSRs if you are interested.
Tyler, can I make an announcement about those?
Please do.
As I'm making this announcement, I know that somebody from our amazing team is going to drop in the chat. So if any of you have not seen, have not heard, or have not purchased in the past the video SSRs, what an incredible tool it is. What an incredible opportunity they afford you to reach out to your parents in such a personal way with such dynamic information. If you've not seen them, if you've not heard what Tyler was just talking about with regards to the video SSRs, I encourage you. I think we should be able to put the link in the chat. Direct to the page on our website. You will be able to see and preview what they look like, what they are about, what are some of the elements that provide you and your LEA with an incredible resource that you can make available to your parents and students. So if you've not seen them, if you've not seen how dynamic and how impactful they could be in your work with your parents, I encourage you to take a look at our website, go to the link. All the ordering information is there. Also, you want a quote, there's a link. You're ready to submit your purchase order, there's a link. But more importantly, if you have not seen them, I encourage you take a look. The link is now there in the chat, and it'll take you to a page where you have not only all the information, but some links to be able to preview some samples of the different video SSRs that are available. Thank you very much for that, Tyler.
Yeah, no problem, Moses. And I think you're going to be due up right again here with our test security topics.
Thank you very much. So, everybody, thank you so much. Take a second, take a breather. We've given you so much without even stopping to be able to take a second to breathe, take in to our partners from the accountability office that were here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here to not only present this incredibly valuable information, but to be available to our LEAs, to help us be able to help our LEAs. And so, coordinators, where you are right now at this point in the year, I think you've heard me say this every single month as I start this section on test security. I'll say it again. Most importantly, to all of you that are here, thank you so much. You've worked so hard all year long with your teachers and your students, and we could never thank you enough for the work that you leaders do to support our teachers and our students. And now, as we get into where we are right now in the year, it begs me to remind us all why we do all of this and why we're entering this season. I mean, we're almost done with the ELPAC. We're doing such a great job. And now CAASPP is so that our students can demonstrate how incredibly hard they have worked with their teachers and be able to do it in the most authentic way with the most greatest opportunity in their test sessions to be able to demonstrate that, how hard they have worked, how much they have learned because of the work that they have done all year long. And so first to you again, I say thank you for the support you have provided your teachers and your students to be able to get to this point. And that then goes right to this section on test security. Again here, all of this that we talked to you about with regards to test security and that we all collectively do around test security, it's for one reason. And it's to make sure that we give our students the best opportunity possible to show again how much they have learned, how hard they have worked. And so everything that we're going to share with you again goes back to that. Something as simple as how are we handling test session IDs? And this is something that if I share it with you, it's because it's come up and it's an important detail. And these are nuances that we bring to you with the hopes, LEA coordinators, as you're reading this and as you might be thinking, well, but this is such an insignificant thing. I beg you, LEA coordinators, make sure you all have this PowerPoint. Make sure that you do everything in your power to get this information into the hands of your site coordinators that will then make sure that this plays out for all of our students while they are testing. Something so important and so possibly insignificant as their test sessions and the IDs that go along with the test sessions. Please take note. Please think through the importance of these details, that the session IDs are secure. Our test examiners and test administrators need to know that, and understand the importance of keeping this what could be insignificant but important point of our test security. The sharing of test sessions, think it through, of one test examiner or one test administrator creating a session and then not being there to monitor it. Okay. As you are thinking through this, play out in your mind the different scenarios that we need to make sure that we are bringing to the forefront of the minds of our test examiners and test administrators as they're engaged in testing. And it goes right hand in hand with, again, this point. I don't think I'm going to talk explicitly right now, again, except for that second bullet about the sign of no unauthorized electronic devices. But boy, does it connect to this. Thank goodness that we are bringing under control this issue of cell phones and smartwatches, and we're not. But again, how much of this could be eliminated by this one simple concept being really understood and really put across to our test examiners and test administrators the importance of this aspect. As you're reading through this, I want to throw something out there, please, for you to consider at the LEA level first, and then at the site level. What are our cell phone policies like? At the LEA level and at the site level, and now here very specifically, how are we handling our cell phone policies in every room where there's testing going on? Okay. Think through this point. How many of those issues would be eliminated if our cell phone policies were well thought out, well delineated, well articulated, and then well enforced? LEA coordinators, please take time to not only think through that, but to make sure that all the way down to every single room where there's testing going on, that our cell phone policies are well articulated to our students and well enforced by our test examiners and test administrators. If you don't have the signs, we have links right at your disposal to, at the very least, make sure that that is part of every single test room environment. And then this point of monitoring during testing.
And Moses, we have a question. One LEA has a parent still pushing for the child to use his Meta glasses because they're a prescription and they're his only pair. They just want confirmation that they can continue to say that those are not permitted during testing.
Yes, it is what we've put across as what we need to continue to enforce with regards to the glasses and other electronic devices that might want to be used during testing. I encourage you, LEA coordinator that might have asked that question. This is a perfect opportunity, Christine, and to the LEA coordinator that's there, and feel free to, in the answer, to share the link to set up a meeting. To either feel free, reach out by email directly to me, set up. There are circumstances like this where we need to talk through it. LEA coordinators, I am here at your disposal for exactly that type of a specific situation. You want to talk through some of these nuances, please, by all means. Our entire team definitely also, but especially some complex issues with nuances like that LEA coordinator might be dealing with. We are here to walk step by step with you in the work that you are doing to provide the kind of test environment for your students that you are doing. So please reach out personally, set up some time for us to be able to talk through, because I know that there are some circumstances that you are dealing with that require more than just a simple answer in a Q&A, and I would be more than happy to sit and talk through some of these nuances with you. Next slide, Tyler, thank you. Now, here another one. Another one of those really test security that might, we say to ourselves, accessibility resources in this section. Yes, please, let's take a second and reflect upon this incredibly valuable, important aspect of our students' testing, not only in and of themselves, but as they relate to test security. We must attend to not only our students with IEPs and 504s and what is written on there, that we must be diligent in making them available to our students, but then there's that entire other population of students that don't have an IEP or 504 plan that we are just as responsible for making sure that we are attending to the accessibility resources that are available to all of our students. And now here, some things to keep in mind about those accessibility resources as they relate to not only testing, but to test security. Things that we need to make sure that our test administrators and test examiners know about, especially if they are newer to testing. The resources must be assigned to our students based upon their needs and based upon what is in their IEP or 504 plan. They cannot just be added or removed during a test session. Okay? And they must be added and be active before the testing starts. Or if not, veteran coordinators, what that will cause if they are not. And in a little while, my colleague Vincent is going to be talking to you about the stairs and how much those can be avoided if we attend to this kind of detail about the accessibility resources. And then by all means, what we know about making sure that our students have ample time to practice with them. And if ever in doubt, it is so much wiser to stop, make sure that the settings are in place before we just go on and start the student into their tests. So please, if you have not, make sure that we at the LEA level first understand the importance of this and make sure that we make it known all the way down to our site coordinators and our test examiners and test administrators that are managing these on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And just to put a little cap on that, Moses, with a question that someone asked, they said, aren't site coordinators responsible for making sure that TAs and TEs are following test security protocols? And I, as an LEA coordinator, support when needed. It gets tricky with who's responsible for what. And, I think that's going to vary at every LEA based on how you've set it up, right? And what the size of your LEA is and all of that. But it's important for everyone to, know how you are doing it at your LEA and be, really aware that that information is flowing from the top to the bottom.
Thank you, Tyler. And I will say it this way. We're all in this together. It is not just the test examiner and here goes and it's on you. No. And it's not on you, LEA coordinators. We have you here today. And we have you here to share this message with you, but we are not saying to you either, here you go. It's on you. Good luck. No. This is on us collectively. This is on us collectively, starting from us who are here. And by the way, this is my perfect opportunity to that person and to all of us for me to make a shout out for, boy, if any of you are not connected on speed dial to your amazing success agent, I urge you, do not leave today without making sure you know who your success agent is and you have them on speed dial. Because you want to know how many questions we can't answer today? About a million of them. And you know how many questions you're going to have tomorrow that you need answers to? About a million of them. And you know who's going to be there for you minute by minute at your service? Our amazing success agents.
That is true.
And
And
I have a question about where is my support system? It is right there in the way of your success agent being the one that will be there to walk you through everything from how do I make sure, listen to this one because this was a huge one and I just mentioned it. How do I make sure that the accessibility is actually active before I let the kids start testing? Boy, if you don't know how much of a nightmare that can cause you, Vincent's going to tell you about it in a couple of minutes when he's upstairs. And that kind of a nuance is how you can make sure that your success agent is your saving grace. Because I'm not going to answer that right now. I'm just going to leave that in your mind to think. If you don't know the answer to that, it's your success agent that's going to be there for you every step of the way to guide you through that kind of a question. And trust me, as Vincent's going to tell you in a minute, you don't want to start having a bunch of kids start testing if you're not sure that their accessibility resources are actually not just inputted, but active. And again, if you don't know who your success agent is or have their number on speed dial, make sure you don't leave today without making sure that that is something you have. Tyler, thank you for
definitely.
uh,
Thanks, Moses.
yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of questions that we might not get to answer today, we'll try to blitz through our last few little topics here and a few of the questions that we've marked to try to answer. So we'll go right over to you, Vincent. I know Moses beat you to the punch for a few things, but anything you'd like to go through?
Yes, thank you, Tyler. I will cover just a few of these talking points. Thank you, Moses. You definitely hit on a few of these things for me, so I can just quickly graze over a few of them. Most importantly, and up first here, just only SSIDs, please, when submitting stairs cases or when entering into the comments in any exchange of information between yourself and ETS or yourself and CDE when submitting your stairs cases. And to not include any personally identifiable information in those stairs cases when describing an incident or when in an exchange. Secondly, of course, is about those test settings. So if anything goes wrong, as Moses had declared to earlier, you will be seeing, myself or Colton processing your cases that you will need to do for each assessment that was not correctly assigned the proper test settings for, should that student need those settings via IEP or 504. Secondly, or thirdly, sorry, domain exemptions should be entered prior to student testing. Once a student begins their assessment and completes their assessment, there is a stairs case in order to fix that. If a student does require a domain exemption for their IEP or 504, per their IEP or 504. Sorry, trying to speak a little too fast. Finally, of course, at the very end, your test assignments should be checked for both CAASPP and ELPAC prior to testing students that will need to take an alternate assessment or a general assessment in one area will need to take that assessment in both areas. And so students testing prior to those assessments being decided by their IEP team should be flagged or accounted for when those things are going to be done. Okay, that should be all of mine, Tyler.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, and Sylvia, you're going to have to speed run it even faster than Vincent did, but we'll take a look at some of our call drivers as well, just the things that folks are calling in to their success agents the most about.
I gotcha. Hi, everyone. Happy April. All right. So your call drivers. first bulletin, we've got your test examiners and test administrator student ratio. So this is your teacher versus your size of classroom that you're going to be testing. So for the summative LPAC, you want to have a reasonable classroom size. So usually it's your normal classroom size. Quick note about that is that proctors, they will help monitor once the test navigation assistant is trained, and they can go in once that session is started, that proctor can go in and help monitor those groups. For the summative LPAC, your ratio is going to be 1 to 20. So that's one teacher per 20 students. Proctors are required for LPAC for more than 20 students in the room. Picture cards for the initial and summative alternate LPAC. Those printed versions are available on the administration and scoring website, which is also known as the AST, or you can request them. Otherwise, they are, reach out to us. We can help you with them if you're not sure how to reach them. Go ahead and go to that next slide, please. Okay. And for the second set of your call drivers, for the summative LPAC kindergarten through grade 2 writing answer books, make sure that you are returning those twice a month. That'll help you get ahead of the game. There is a material returns link included in your FedEx delivery of your materials. If you misplaced that or didn't catch on to it, reach out to your success agent. We can send you those return material instructions. And then as far as your Moodle access codes versus Moodle enrollment keys, your access codes are in general for your LEA coordinators. These are sent out to you. If you're not aware of what it is, reach out to your success agent team via email. We can provide it to you. And yes, there is a separate code for both the LPAC and the CAASPP program. These are housed and used for the AST site. Your enrollment keys are those specialized, unique keys that are used within the Moodle training site that allows access to actually begin your Moodle training. Those are used for the Moodle site. Again, accessing those codes within the AST site will give you access to the enrollment keys. And hopefully that made sense. Reach out to us if it didn't. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sylvia. A plus on the speed of that delivery. Thank you so much. And yeah, we have a few reminders here, but they are pretty much all things that you have heard before. If you'd like to read through these, you can download our slides. I'd like to just cover a couple of questions that came in, and one special topic to kind of add on to test security a little bit. There are we often have talked about the test security of course, summative assessments. But interim assessments are secure as well, and we've gotten a couple questions about using AI or generative AI platforms and how that
Did we lose Tyler?
I think he may have frozen up, Moses. Do you know, can you channel your inner Tyler and finish his thought?
I mean, but as Tyler was mentioning,
relates to interim assessment security.
Tyler, we lost you for a minute there.
My,
Just as you were talking about AI.
I think I'm back. Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, the internet is struggling to keep up today. Talking too fast, I guess. Yes. So on the topic of AI and interim assessments, we've gotten some questions about using generative AI to help score or hand score interim assessment questions. And this is a reminder that you cannot put any secure materials, any kind of the training materials that have secure materials that you get from Tom's, and anything that might have any kind of secure info into any generative AI platform or any other third-party platforms. So that's just a quick reminder there to avoid that. If anybody wants to expand on that, I'll let them. One other question that I wanted to get to, just kind of revisiting the grace period change this year. There was a question from Kimberly that kind of is a little bit more about the system side of things. So Kimberly said it can take about 3 to 5 days for students to get imported into the TA interface. So if a student enrolls 4 days before the end of the accountability window, they cannot get into test. How can we get that student tested in time? And so I wanted to say a couple things about this first. The timing can be quicker than that. It depends a little bit on traffic of the systems and everything, but it's worth mentioning that you should be in close contact, especially in those last few days of your accountability window. Be in close contact with your CalPads person so that if a new student comes in, that they're getting, entered into CalPads and then sent to Tom's as quickly as possible, because it can be as quick as 24 hours. And you just be in touch with your staff that is involved in that process and your success agent, because they can kind of help keep an eye on that, and see, help you plan a little bit. But really the main part of that is just do your best at the end of your testing window. Do the best that you can, and document everything. Document everything that you did when that student enrolled. And if you tried to test them, then that's the best that you could do when you tried to test them. So just wanted to put that out there. And Moses, do you have something you'd like to add to that?
No, not on that. I'll just go ahead
Okay.
and finish that. But
I think that's it. Just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, finish this up.
thank you. I want to, and not necessarily finish up because there might be others, but an incredibly important and timely question that was asked by our colleague Ann Runs from San Diego. Last week we sent, and Ann, I'll use this. Last week we sent out an email about such an incredibly timely, important reminder. And this is one that connects so closely to the heart of our students and what they've just done. Summative ELPAC. You know that speaking domain that you've taken so much care to make sure your students did their best on? And you, as you were giving it, you wrote down their scores on the score sheet. Boy, is this an important reminder that I want to take this opportunity to put out there again. Do not wait. Please do not wait to enter the scores into the DEI. There are so many scenarios, so many reasons why we beg you, do not wait to enter the scores into the DEI. And if you look at the Q&A, Anne just posted one that can be so incredibly easy to overlook and not keep in mind. Once a student, for whatever reason, is no longer available to you in your TOMS, if you have not entered their scores into the DEI, boy, is that something we don't want happening. It's another one. Know how easy it is for those score sheets to get eaten by your dog at school, your mascot? No, don't let that happen. Enter your scores for the students that have finished the speaking domain into the DEI so that we can eliminate all kinds of possibilities like what Ann just asked about in regards to not being able to enter into the DEI. The scores that those students worked so hard to produce for us as we were giving them that domain of the summit development. Thank you, Ann, and thank you for allowing me to make that reminder.
Yeah, thanks, Moses. We are a few minutes over, so I'm going to wrap us up here. Thank you so much to everyone for spending some time with us. And like we have said many times, if you didn't get your question answered or have more, please reach out to your success agent. I put that lookup tool link in the chat if you don't happen to know who your success agent is. Yeah, definitely reach out to them, and we hope you all have a smooth April, and hope that we'll see you in May. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.